G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day. Now today, as always, we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to have a look at the maps, and we have a lot of geolocations today showing some movements and showing a lot of destroyed equipment that we have seen in the past 24 hours. We have footage of that, and I'll show you all of this. For everything, come and join the Telegram. I think it's a really good place for discussions, and unlike this website, there isn't anywhere near the amount of censorship, and you can join the discussion better. I'm far more active there too. We're going to talk about Crimea. We're going to talk about a new self-propelled gun that we've seen from Russia operating at the front line, and we're going to talk about the peace summit, who's going, who's not going, and what the outcome of this will be. So firstly, let's look at the maps, and we'll mix in a fair bit in this as far as destroyed equipment as we're going. So here, of course, is Ukraine, the center, the capital of Kyiv. The red areas occupied since 22, the purple since 2014. Of course, here is Belarus, and here is Russia around here. A couple of places you'll need to know is Belgorod and Kursk as well. So we're off and running of what's happening. Now, due to it being the start of the month, and I can't believe we're this late in the year, Warmapper gives us a month update for then the previous month. Now, some have pointed at this and gone, this is fairly light because it does show less Russian gain than even Ukraine's own deep state map, but regardless, we can see that over 200 square kilometers was made in the month of May, which is very, very similar to June 23 here. What I will say about Warmapper is he's very, very conservative on any gains. And like I said, deep state is actually showing more than this amount, but you can see where the ground for Ukraine's offensive and then Russia's beginning of the offensive here. And we don't know on the Russian offensive whether there is more coming. We don't know. We know Ukraine's saying, and has been for now over a month, that mid-June is when they expect to see large pushes. But again, we are just now unsure. But it would seem if Russia was going to go on the offensive, the time would be about now. Ukraine is having problems with manpower mobilization, is having to mobilize more men. They still have a backload trying to get those shells and weapons then into the fight as well due to that massive shell shortage. So it would seem about now. Is Ukraine then going to swing onto the offensive? With everything that we're seeing, I don't think this year, potentially next year as well. But let's then look at what the ISW has said. Of course, very, very pro-Ukrainian source here, that Ukrainian field commanders are reportedly compensating for training difficulties that mobilization has exacerbated by training new personnel on the front line. So this is a concern if we read between this. Now, there's a few here. Reportedly compensating for training difficulties mobilization has exacerbated. So due to mobilization, it has made problems because there's not enough staff to then train. Now, this is probably one of the reasons why France wants to deploy training staff in, but we haven't even seen the huge mobilization that's going to have to come, that will have to be, regardless of whatever you think, it's going to have to be in the hundreds of thousands. If Ukraine, before their victory, they want to take Crimea, Sevastopol, Donetsk, it's going to have to be in the hundreds of thousands, and already having problems with this is concerned, and training new personnel on the front line. Now, decisions to train newly deployed personnel on the front before committing them to combat indicate that overall quality of Ukrainian forces will likely remain higher than that of Russian forces in the near to mid-term. I don't see how this is really the mental gymnastics made here, but putting new personnel, training them on the front line, this isn't what we have been hearing about. Everyone will be trained to NATO standard, given that 4 weeks of training, which I can tell you is not NATO standard, but this is a problem here. The experience gained on the front line, that is very important for then attritional warfare. If you look at the doctrine behind attritional warfare, it does talk about everyone meeting a certain training element and then gaining experience on the front line, but putting in only a few troops in each platoon, each company, to then gain that experience, and by the time they're experienced, there'll be less experienced guys in, and sort of that roll-on of experience on personnel, as of course attritional warfare, you're going to have high losses. So this, I believe, is a concern before we've even seen the mobilization that is going to have to come. Now, let's have a look up in the north, and we'll work our way down. Now, in the north, we have seen a lot of then Russian losses, as well as movement on some maps, but not then this map. So we'll come Kharkiv, Belgorod here. So no movement on this map. Of course, we're going to be looking around Vovchansk here. Now, Noel Reports then has this on his map showing The grey zone on this map and the grey zone fairly similar, but less of a red push in the deep state, but more blue in here as far as Ukrainian controlled territory that's still shown as grey zone on then his map for the day. Now, the reason for a lot of these changes is then this footage that has come out. Now, this footage is said to be then a Russian troop here with his hands up, clearly surrendering. Now, what we don't know is he still surrendering to a drone well behind the line? Are there troops somewhere in here we can't see? Are there Ukrainian troops? So we don't really know. What I do hope is, regardless of the uniform people have got on, that surrendering troops by all the policies around the world, all the legalities, that surrendering troops are allowed to surrender, because in way too many cases, we have seen Ukrainian and Russian troops who have clearly indicated surrender then be executed. Now, that is completely illegal. And what I will say on that is, if you think about how often we see that in video, how much more often do you think that's happening that then isn't publicized? But that footage is then geolocated to right here. So this is Vovchansk here. We'll swing back onto this map. So we see where this then turns this road here. So just in and around this location. That said, we don't know if it was a surrender from distance to drone or there are troops in here. Again, we are unsure. Again, this would show right about here on Noel Report's map. So again, it can be hard to say, but we do know that there has been a real swing in the control in here and what is happening through the deployment of reserves, and for maybe lack of commitment on a front from Russia as well, by then these strikes going back across from Western weapons on this front too. So let's have a look at this before we have a look at some more of this. So we can see on Syriac, now this is the intersection up here where that surrender was, but we can see then blue on this as taking back some ground. From Chuhiv axis, the situation inside Vovchansk is fluid and confused. The Vovchansky, this factory, could not be held by the Russians, while from the south it seems that Ukrainian troops continue to resist. It seems that Ukrainian troops, on the other hand, the epicenter of the fighting is taking place in high-rise buildings, either under grey zone or Ukrainian control. Nor can there be talk of a massive Ukrainian counteroffensive. Russian troops are holding their positions despite the arrival of Ukrainian reinforcements and war material. So saying there's not going to be some huge offensive back here, it's more stabilization, which I think Ukraine's biggest issue has been for a long time the lack of realization that this is an attritional aspect of war. And what we have seen and what people you've seen say on this through me is the deployment of mass elements to have counteroffensives and push back through areas like this purely maybe to gain a PR victory in the short run. How much effect is that having down the line on an offensive in 6 months, 12 months? So what I'm saying is, and what they were saying is, how much to the war effort is Russia holding this really doing at the moment? Probably not that much. They walked across some defensive works and they occupy this area. But the amount of assets you may have to pour back into here to take that back to show that Russia's not gaining an inch anywhere, well, that can have a huge effect. And there is a trap of sort of chasing your tail and chasing any PR victory and gain like that and keeping up the optics. So it's sort of looking like a bit of 50-50 of that here. We'll see how then this goes. But of course, we do know that in this region, there has been a lot of HIMARS and other weapons then cross into Belgrade pretty much on the dot of when the US said Ukraine can then strike back into here with Western weapons. And today is no different in two areas in the north. So we then see these photographs and video has come out. Let me just mute this. This might be really loud. We see the burning up of an air defense rocket system then here as well. Then we have some photographs here of these are either S-300 or S-400 launchers. I believe that they're S-400. I'm not 100% sure. I can't tell the difference. And we can see these burning up. Now, one thing I will say in these are a very, very sensitive bit of equipment that Russia would not want out, that they have been then lost. So what I will say, and I'll say again, we get photographic satellite video evidence of something within 24 hours of it happening. And if that doesn't come out and some MOD has a claim, question it. Now, how much damage is this? Well, of course, these tend to be the launchers that are on fire and destroyed here. But the really important bit are the radar. Now, I can't tell from these photographs just how much damage has been actually put onto the radar system in this area. But one thing we will say is that these are all bunched in, which is particularly not what you want. Well, spacing just from soldiers on the ground through to weapon systems like this can be taken out from things like HIMARS, airburst, taking these out. But to the radar system, we're not really sure. But this has shown that there is a real lack in medium range defense. Medium range is some of the hardest to intercept, and we've seen this with Ukraine and Russia. So, Russia intercepting planes, long-range weapons, but these medium-range things like HIMARS be very, very difficult. And on the flip side of this, we see the medium-range things, sort of like your Russian tornadoes, your TOS, your FAB, is also difficult as well, because there is this cost to effect ratio as well that comes into these of, is it worth hitting a FAB with a bloody Patriot or SAMP or something? No, but it can still have a huge effect on target. So I think there needs to be, from both Russia, Ukraine, West, a look at medium range coverage and what is doing that there. So yeah, but let's have a look at where that was taken out. And that is a large target hit. So we have this geolocation up to exactly here, just to the north of Belgorod. Now, this is a long way away, talking about 60 kilometers, 40 miles from even some of the most near areas, just under that. So people are pointing out what exactly hit here. Well, it's being reported that it was HIMARS. Some are saying ATACMS, but we do know that the US has said Ukraine's not allowed to use ATACMS behind the line. But again, we aren't exactly sure on a lot of this. Now, there has been as well a Russian convoy taken out in Kursk here. So let's have a look. This is only a kilometer from the Russia-Ukraine border. Zoom right out here. And so this is where we're expecting potentially another front line to open up in the north into Sumy, like the one towards Kharkiv. Now, along this road, there was a lot of vehicles taken out in a convoy. This is taking us back to images that we really saw sort of 2022 Russian military. So we see the convoy down here. Now, I don't know how much of this I can show. I know I can show more of Russian destruction on YouTube than Ukraine, but in this, from my count, 8 of the 14 vehicles are taken out. Now, Russian pages are reporting that there was actually no casualties from this, but again, there's informational war, grain of sand, anything online. All of that will be in the Telegram if you'd like to see. Now, I actually believe the most important bit of kit taken out the whole 24 hours is actually this Custer 2E Echo 2 portable radar. Now, this is a brand new state-of-the-art radar system for Russia. Now, what does this do? Well, this is particularly designed for low-altitude weapon systems. So not looking up in the air like the bloody other systems, but very low rockets, drones, all those sort of new modern munitions. And then this is taken out by a loitering munition then here. So that is an important system then taken out. That said, if a radar system doesn't have the weapons aboard it to then intercept, well, it is then just sitting there. It can see, but it has nothing to then hit. So let's then have a look. Actually, no, I want to talk about something first. So we talked about those, Western weapons being used back into Russia. And many have speculated, and including us over the past month, that in response to Ukraine striking into Russia with Western weapons, could Russia target Western drones over the Black Sea that are providing intelligence and guidance of Ukrainian weapons? So we know there's a heap of drones and everything fly up and over the Black Sea. Could it be in this sort of micro-step escalation that we see by the West and by Russia? Could we see then those targeted? Now, targeting a plane would be different, but targeting a drone, I think we could then see that. But now let's actually have a look at the maps and work then our way. I don't know. We're just going to come into where we actually see a change on this map. Now, we can see is that Russia has made an advancement into Kharkivka out here from Vodiana. Now, this is the area we spoke about that we believe these Russian prongs will come up. The problem with this is it does put the Ukrainian troops that are in here in the defensive in a weird position, because coming out of here is going to be difficult with Russia with control and fire power across here. And then coming out of here is going to be difficult, due to the Russians in Urmansk and, of course, the Vovchansk River and where you can actually cross. So this could be a problem in here. Now, originally it was stated this was going to be a problem for the Russians. I think it may actually be a flip on this. And this is being confirmed by, one, the Ukrainian deep state map, and then Noel reports shows then same movement here. And then we have Syriac showing very, very similar same here. So 1000%, we know then that happened, and that is known because of geolocated drone footage by a Ukrainian drone dropping stuff on Russian troops in exactly this area. There's a few videos there, but then we know that has come under control, and it will be interesting to see where that then changes. Now, there is no more changes on the deep state map, but I will want to look at a couple more things. So just south of here, Novomyalivka, we have Suryak saying there is more of a break-in into Paraskovska in here. Now, we know that Russia down here will try and bound between Novomyalivka, Konstantinivka, down here, putting pressure on then this road of supply through to Pobeda, through to Ugledar, as well as then an axis putting down in here in Problem as well. But no movement seen on this map. But if we then jump onto Suryak, we see then this more expansion of control, not too much more, but just where this road then runs north-south in there. So some small change in there. Now let's have a look in Robotny. Now, of course, nothing again has changed on this map. We spoke about where the defensive works are in here yesterday and how this could be potentially a new axis for Russia. We don't know if and when they open access exactly where that will be, and the informational war in here, because of how difficult it was to take this, that Ukraine don't really want to lose anything in here. Now, these are hard to line up because they're showing so much bloody differently, but this is Robotny down in here. See where this turns to then the northwest? This is then this northwestern push. So they're saying that, see this paddock that looks like a square that's folded across, that Russia is way out in here. That is what Suryak map is saying. So looking significantly different in here. 10 days, Russian army managed to capture eastern trenches of Robotny. So we're not exactly sure what it's looking like down in here. Hopefully we'll get a better idea very soon. Now let's come into then the Avdiivka front, sorry, not Bakhmut. And we have just up in this north area a Suryak update in here. The situation north of Avdiivka during the last 48 hours, Russian army managed to capture trenches of here, while the other troops began the assault on Sokil. So far, Russians managed to capture the positions of eastern outskirts of the village. So we have then Osheretny, Sokil. This is Sokil, this blue dot. This, of course, is Solovov. So a push from the north to south and east to west coming in here. We know this front right here near Sokil, this has been back and forward actually a fair bit between Russian and Ukrainian forces and claimed control in there. No changes in Chasiv Yar, but I am hearing some things on the sort of grapevine that I can't talk about yet that doesn't seem like a great situation coming down in there. But that will end then our mapping for today. Now, what I want to look at, let's look at this new Russian self-propelled gun. So some first photographs of this have come out. So we have this self-propelled gun, also known SPG. You also have SPAG, so self-prepared anti-aircraft gun, if you ever hear me that use those terms. And we have then another video here released by a Russian page of then it firing then its munition here. Of course, self-propelled guns shoot and scoot. You can get a couple of rounds off while they're still in the air. This is something people forget. Those rounds going 20 Ks, they don't fly that fast. They're in the air for a long time. Now, let's look at what these pages have said. The appearance of the newest Russian self-propelled gun, Malva, was recorded for the first time at the front. According to military publications, the photo was taken from a drone in Belgorod. Malva is the latest Russian artillery system, which, according to some information, began entering service in winter. It's a copy of the French Caesar and the Ukrainian Bogdana systems. Like these guns, Malva is automated and can fire in raid mode. It can also use tactical nuclear projectiles. We know that many countries in the world have tried with nuclear projectiles in, of course, artillery guns. Very, very small yield, as people will call a tactical nuke. There's no such thing as a tactical nuke. You've got large scale, you've got large yield, small yield, and that. It doesn't matter if a nuclear bomb was the size of this and it went off somewhere around the world, the strategic fallout of that is going to be unbelievably large. But it says here it's a copy of the French Caesar. So this is a French Caesar. And then a Ukrainian Bogdana. Now, I think the Bogdana is also a little bit of a copy of the French Caesar as well. And then we have then, of course, this one here, which are all looking very, very similar to itself. So we see those, and we're going to see more and more SPGs. We know Australia has put in a huge order for more SPGs, and Poland has put in an unbelievably huge order from South Korea of SPGs as well. Now, let's talk about the peace summit, as some things here aren't looking too bright for what is to come of this. We know China is saying they're not going to come, and they've responded to Zelensky saying it just hasn't met our requirements for coming without these countries there. And we know India may or may not be going. We're not 100% sure. This is on the Hindustan Times. New Delhi, India is yet to make a call on the level of its participation at this summit on peace in Ukraine. So there will be some. While India is expected to be among the countries attending, New Delhi will not be represented by top leaders, including the Prime Minister of External Affairs. And this is something we're seeing actually a lot of, is who actually is going to these. So we know Biden isn't going. He's going to some weird Epstein event in Hollywood. And Kamala Harris is being sent instead of him, so high prospects there. And Australia is sending Bill Shorten. Now, we're definitely not sending then our highest, most important, best and brightest leaders. Now, if you don't know Bill, because you're not an Australian, Bill is the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Bill's actually all through the news today, sorry, mate, because it's been exposed that he just signed his speechwriter to a $620,000 2-year contract. So his speechwriter's on $310K a year. Not bad. Hit me up, Bill. I don't know, I'll be useful around there. Bill ran for Prime Minister in 2016 and 2019. He lost both elections, which should have been really unlosable. So, yeah, I think if China, India, Pakistan, well, no, Pakistan's, we don't think they're going either. Saudi and Russia were going. I guarantee Biden, Albanese, Australian Prime Minister, these sort of leaders would then be going. And we're going to see that at some point. At some point, we will then see that. Now, let's talk about Crimea. And this is sort of on everyone's tongue all the time about the Kerch Strait Bridge down in here and the importance then of this. So let's talk about this. Now, we have another photograph. We showed you a satellite of this, but barges are being used to block the pylons here from Ukrainian drone boats as well. But we get this from The Economist, that General Hodges is confident that Ukrainians will take down the Kerch Bridge when they are ready. However, a potentially greater challenge will be disrupting the new improved rail line running across the Azov Sea from Rostov through to southern Ukraine cities of Mariupol, Berdyansk, down into Crimea. And we've spoken at length for the last year about this. Now, my drawing is going to be all over the place, but we go Rostov, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Melitopol, and then some way down into Crimea here. This is the new train line being built, being upgraded, all of that, as well as other links across there too. That, like he's saying, it's going to be more difficult to disrupt. You take down a bridge, that's hard to replace. You take out a rail line, Russia has a whole core of railway, literally a core that just fixes railways. You only take it down for a quick time. And this has led to even Ukrainian intelligence saying the actual military use of the bridge is minimal across here, that it's being through there. And I think that the time to have that go down was in line with the Ukrainian 23 offensive. And while that was still, I guess, strategically important, it is important, I guess, for seeing what in the future, but where Ukrainian intelligence is telling us that there's no military equipment crossing across here. So, yeah, I guarantee we'll see that at least massively targeted at some point. What effect will that have on the front line? I don't particularly know, going off Ukraine's own statements about that bridge. Legends. That is me for the day, and a quicker video than bloody normal. Great. Now, I did promise I had a video on about espionage. That I have to push it back a couple of days. I'm too busy with some other interviews and stuff. There are some interviews coming. I hope you enjoy those. So I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.